that? So I was on an airplane the other day with a guy, and I mean I go through the world telling people to buy your books, and I've bought them for so many people, and I just think they're really useful. I mean, I'm on doing the 4-Hour Body now in a very rigorous, disciplined way, and I've been doing it for almost 2 weeks, and I've been making really good progress, though I think I have to ask you one question because I'm too lazy to go back to the book right now, and you're here, so sorry. You're sitting in front of me.
No problem.
But I was sitting on an airplane with a guy. We're going to wrap this up soon, so just a few more things, but I was sitting on an airplane next to a guy, a successful young guy, like under 40, a COO of a big financial company. And he starts unburdening himself to me as airplane companions do. And he started saying, all I want in life is to be able to spend 3 unadulterated hours with my kids, but I have to do these emails all day long. And he said, because I have all these sales guys who work for me, they need answers because he managed a retail brokerage. And he said, in my business, the amount of emails I have to answer to those guys during the day and then to the chairman and CEO and the board at night, he's like, I cannot. And I said, well, there's this tool, if you read this book, and here's why. And he kept saying, I just wish I could. And I know that and I said, no, you can. Right. I said, there's tons of test cases where it actually will make you. I go, when do you think? When do you plan your strategy? And he said, I don't have time to think. and I said, dude, what do you mean you don't? I mean, I know you've had this conversation 100 times with companies.
Yeah.
But what do you think the best tool is? Like, I journal every day and I meditate. Those are the things that I take long walks. Those are my ways. I know you do similar stuff. But what do you think the best? People hear goal setting and it confuses them, and I think it's actually too inexact a term and it's intimidating. But what do you think the best tool to tell the truth to yourself about what you want is? Like, what's the best way to be accountable to yourself for what your objectives should really be?
Well, I think there's the how do you gain clarity and then how do you implement. So there are two pieces. The first one is there's an exercise I still do to this day. I mean, I call it dreamlining. Which is discussed in a couple of chapters in the 4-Hour Workweek. But the basic idea is you take out, say, a piece of paper. I like to do this manually. And you draw 2 or 3 vertical lines dividing the page. And actually, you can start off even simpler. You can write down in the next 3 years what you want to have, what you want to do, and what type of person you want to be, right? And this would be a collection of characteristics. But you have what do I want to have, what I want to do, and really, and you could even do it for retirement, but go crazy, right? So if you want whatever, you want a Lamborghini Gallardo, then write it down. Great. You want to ski in Aspen once a year and blah, 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 write it down. And then what you're going to do is look at the costs of all those things, the to-dos, the to-haves, the to-bes or becomes, and whether you could finance it or not. Okay, so Lamborghini Gallardo, okay, it costs whatever it costs, right? $400,000. Well, could you rent? Could you lease? Could you join a European sports car club that allows you to put X number of miles on? And you start to arrive at a specific number. And once you have this number, and typically I encourage people to assess it on a monthly basis. So to have all these things, what would it cost on a monthly basis? And a payment plan, financing, renting, whatever it might be. And you spec it out and you arrive at what would be your target monthly income if you wanted to experience these things now or in a year or two as opposed to when you retire, right? Which functionally is when you are least capable of appreciating and enjoying these things. And once you have that target monthly income and this list of things you want to have, do, and be, there's very often a lot of clarity that can be gained just by going through that exercise, as I'm sure you've noticed with journaling, just getting into a flow. And then in terms of implementation, that's a bit of a longer discussion.
Yeah, maybe a part 2. Yeah. But the executive who has this guy has enough money to buy himself a Lamborghini, and he's still a rat getting glucose fed to him with these emails.
Yep.
Like, how does somebody like that figure out that they're like lying to themselves, or they can't? Or do you think that they're too far, that they don't really want to know?
I think it's a lot of the latter, but the way that I walk people through that is if the same way you would walk someone through initiating fat loss, for instance.
It's the same thing as somebody who'd say, I want to be a writer, right? Someone who's not the rich CEO, but the guy who's like, I want to be a writer. I look at those people. Yeah. So what do you?
So I think that there are fundamentally there's starting behavior and stopping behavior, and I think that the approaches are actually different if you want to catalyze either of those. In terms of I'll talk about the executive on the plane first, and then
that's fine.
And then we'll do a part two, which would be fun because I'm enjoying this. But for the executive, I think that there are a few questions that you ask him or have him ask himself, and the first is, if you continue to do what you're doing, is it going to get 6 months from now? Will the problem be better or worse? Is the volume of email going to decrease or increase? And his answer is going to be increase. I'm like, okay, how much do you think it'll increase? All right, a year from now, is the problem going to be better or be worse? So at what point? And the conclusion, of course, it'll come to is at some point he has to fix a broken system. Currently, he does not have a good process for dealing with this, and then you can make the argument very easily that an ounce of prevention or addressing it now is worth a pound of cure later, and you can show him the cost of inaction. So by not making a decision, you are making a decision, and we can quantify what that's going to cost you in terms of health, in terms of missing your kids growing up, in terms of causing strife in your marriage, in terms of ultimately leading to an implosion that will then take you out of your job. We can financially assess the damage that will do. And when you sort of list down the cons of simply postponing the decision, you are often able to get someone to take a small step in the right direction.
That's great, and we'll end here. That is exactly what I would say to somebody who wants to write and can't is, how often are you snapping at your life partner now because you're frustrated, right? I mean, what's the toxicity? Where do you think that toxicity will be at soon? And as far as inaction, not deciding, one of my favorite quotes, and I think I said it once before in here, is, the quote from Rush, Neil Peart, if you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice.